Hey there, it is me, the next guy here. So, currently did a time lapse of this map I made for some Christmas specials that I was doing my DM or my Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition campaigns. I run two separate games, so I guess I'm kind of a little bit of a forever DM here. But I was originally just going to do it for one of my campaigns, but I decided, you know what, why not do it for both? And I can reuse the map and it'll save me some time. I decided while I'm at, you know what, Maze will record a time lapse of it and I'll do a voiceover. Just talk about kind of the map making process I'm doing. Anyway, so currently here, trying to get some cliffs down as a kind of like a barrier against the wind, a nice little place where people can, put their settlements in and won't be blasted by wind and snow. And also look, if you looked at earlier when I was like putting those streaks down, different textures, I was trying to kind of feel it will be a good palette or will be a good texture for it. Because there's like one snow template, one snow texture, and a bunch of ice ones. So I end up going with the snow one from Fantasy, actually. So I was messing around deciding if I can go for ice or not. But I went with the snow from Fantasy. And after I did that, threw down the cliffs, started throwing down some houses. I just kind of put them every which way. Just kind of, I want to put them on the map so I have somewhat of an idea. All right, where can I put these? What kind of buildings and stamps do I want to use? That's just kind of the general gist of what I was trying to do here. Kind of merging some together, maybe make it look a little bigger. But you'll see with the row of houses there, I ended up actually not liking the way that looked. So I kind of spaced out a little bit more. You can see that right here, actually. Trying to make it look a little more sparse, less packed, so it's not quite a city. It's more like an actual village you would find, like a small town, so to speak. I guess I kind of took some inspiration from Horton Hears a Who here. I'm not Horton Hears a Who. I'm sorry. How the Grinch story from Dr. Seuss, kind of like the town. That was it. Just kind of like the size of it. Nothing else weird. Um, Not that Dr. Seuss is bad or anything, it's not my style. But anyway, I threw down some more houses here using the Viking stamp set as well as the snow houses. There's only so many snow stamps. They all look amazing, by the way, but there is a limited selection, so you'll see me reusing a fair bit. But I didn't go too crazy with the buildings here. I wanted to keep it kind of a small town feel, but I threw those towers up on the ridge as kind of like a lookout part. I thought that looked kind of nice. And you'll see me now just kind of getting the town center together, just like little by little here, throwing this stuff together. Like a little separated farm there, maybe a little house. Maybe come spring, they'll be doing some farming or something. I mean, honestly, you can kind of do whatever you want. So after I kind of got the gist of what I want for the town, I started adding the trees to make it look a little more full, less just kind of empty, because there is a lot of empty space. And that what you're seeing here with the buildings is mostly the end product for the buildings. I didn't do too much more with it. I had a few like small shacks here and there and moved some closer together and adjusted it. But besides that, that's pretty much the finished product. So here I'm currently making the path that goes up these cliffs to these towers. Gives you a good view from a long way away. You can see if anything's coming, forest fires, weather, just kind of anything. I figured it would be a nice little thing. It would give us some points of interest on those cliffs as well, and a little house there too. Maybe they'll live in the tower, or maybe someone else, the shed. It can be anything essentially. And yeah, what I want to do for this is make something that anyone can use for anything. So I didn't put any names or anything. I numbered it later on. But anyway, so that's kind of the gist of the town there. So I'm start moving on to the centerpiece of the map, which is a Christmas tree, a big old Christmas tree. I actually had fun making this one. This took me like 45 minutes or so, half an hour, 45 minutes. Granted, you don't really see it in the time lapse here, but I used some of the stuff from the battle map, such as these magical orbs from the wizard category. I just kind of threw them on there, kind of like baubles or ornaments, and just kind of made it look like they're hanging a little bit. Spent a fair time fiddling with these as well, kind of adjusting, making it look right. It did take a fair bit to get these looking right, but it was a lot of fun making this one. I also used the path tool, as you'll see later on, to connect it, make it look like they were actually hung, or they had lights and such. Granted, it's not very fitting for the time, have electric lights or anything like that. But in a world where magic exists, surely anything is possible. So maybe they have electricity, or maybe it's just continual flame or thaumaturgy, dancing lights. You can honestly make up whatever you want. That's the beauty of Dungeons and Dragons. It's whatever you want. Now here you can see I'm using the path tool here, just black on the layer before, so it kind of connects all those and looks like it wraps around the tree. I kind of like how that came out. Couple of little areas where I could have been a little more neat with the mouse, but I don't have a great steady hand, so that didn't help so super much there. Anyway, so now you gotta make the center or the topper of the tree here, which is the star. Now there ain't no stars, so you kind of have to improvise just a fair bit. So I used two kind of chandeliers and just kind of put them inside each other, make kind of a star. It's not like the plastic ones you see these days, but it look kind of nice. And I started taking the light from the battle map and putting them on each ornament. I did pop down a save, because by the end of this, I actually had almost about 8,000 assets on the map. It was a fair bit. It was actually getting quite laggy. I feel like I definitely could have done more, spent another hour or so on this map, kind of getting more details and a whole lot of fun stuff like that. But it's just getting really laggy. I had a hard time actually like moving and clicking, placing stuff down. When you usually get to that many assets, just kind of breaks down a little bit. But you can solve that by lowering the resolution settings when you first start the map if you know you're gonna make a big map. I didn't think it would turn something this big, so I had a high or 2K. Anyway, so I finished with that, and I took these train car pieces from the train set that recently just got added to Inkarnate at the time of recording this. So I shrunk it down and adjusted the size and changed the queue there, which is so amazing. I'm so glad they added this tool into Inkarnate. It's such an amazing feature. I just tried to make some candy canes. I couldn't exactly figure out something I could use to make it round, kind of like a natural candy cane. So I just kind of went for this shape. I figured as far away as folks are gonna be looking at it, they're not really gonna notice. So saved that because I didn't want to lose all that 45 minutes of work right there. Anyway, so I thought that tree looked pretty nice. So actually, I copied it and pasted it. I may admit, but right now I'm actually getting down the roads here, which is essentially I'm thinking like trod snow. So I just took the snow texture, changed the up the contrast a little bit, and the lowered the saturation, made it a little bit darker, and that's about it. That's all I really did for that. I added some nice curves, a circle around the tree, and some rows, just kind of connecting here and there, and then outside of the town as well. Anyway, so after that, you kind of see my thought process here. I'm all over the place slightly. I'll do one thing, I have an idea for one thing, I'll do the next, and then I'll just go right back and kind of bounce back and forth. And speaking of bounce back and forth, now I'm bouncing back to the tree, taking some of the hills here, kind of spreading them all around, flipping them, and I tinted it red. Kind of give it like this look of there's like a red carpet under the tree that's over it. A place where you can put the presents and such. I also did this with this ground texture, made it red. Tried to blend it in there using the same hue, but I found they were a little bit different actually. Anyway, then I copied the big Christmas tree and I put a couple smaller ones down here and there. Messed around with the layers a little bit, try and make it like put one behind it, but when I did that, I found it kind of ruined everything on the Christmas tree because they were already based on different layers. So I ended up just not putting something behind it, and that will actually come back to bite me a little bit. Especially right here when I'm placing all these trees down, because you can kind of see it kind of stands out just a fair bit there. So I tried kind of again messing with the layers on there, but it didn't work very well. I couldn't quite select it, so I just decided, all right, I'm gonna increase the layer of these trees and put it over it. So I messed around with these layers probably too long, honestly. It took me a fair while to get these layers right, probably a good 20 minutes or so, just placing down trees. But I do like the end product that came out with the trees. It made it look kind of nicely packed, like they really had to log all this stuff out. Almost kind of roughing it, but like they've definitely done it for a while. Anyway, you can see right there the layers right there, how the trees are kind of overlapping each other in a way that does not look natural. My solution: make everything the same layer. And well, that actually worked. So, with Control L, if you click on an asset, press Control L, you can lock it. So if you're trying to select an area you don't want to select certain assets, you can do that to the assets you don't, and it won't select it. It's amazing. And if you ever do want to select it, though, you just go into your search bar and you just search it, and you can unlock it from there. Anyway, super handy assets. It's a super handy tool if you're dealing with any large amount of assets that are all over the place, like trees, grass, you name it. A city. I mean, yeah. Anyway, so now just kind of filling in some more spaces here with trees. A lot of trees used in this. That is the majority of the stamps in this. It's just a lot of trees. I really wanted to give it that winter wonderland vibe, So I kind of went maybe a little too zealous on the trees, but I think it came out nice. It has a nice little homey, cozy feel. Like there's not just vast open spaces. It's nice and cozy. Also had the same layer issue there. So what I did, instead of actually fixing the layers, I just decided to take the lazy way out, cleared it, made a road instead, so now you don't actually see that. So I had to do some modification there with some of the trees, delete a couple of them here and there, and then adjust the layers one more time, and then delete some, but then you have another row coming right in there. I kind of like that, actually. Another way in, it's not bad. Anyway, now what was I doing here? I literally am recording this right after I did this, so surprised I don't remember, but here we are. Okay. Oh yeah, so adding some smoke trails to the chimneys here. Just taking the cloud texture, putting it over, making sure it's all blowing in the same direction, because it would blow with the wind. and the wind doesn't really change too much. So as it goes up, it's going to keep blowing. I have it going east here, northeast-ish. Judge if you assume north is the top of the map, and just kind of messing around with that. And I noticed that tree I messed it up. Put the layer a little bit lower than what I should have been. Anyway, so spent some time with that, and then I took another cloud texture, changed the opacity down, and kind of at the end there, it looked like it kind of was dissipating a little bit. Made it look like it's fading out. It's not just there and then immediately stops. So I was looking at that, I'm like, oh, this looks pretty good, but I think there should be more on these roads. So I took the desert lamp stamp. I changed up the colors a little bit using hue and saturation. I made it black, kind of like some C.S. Lewis Chronicles of Narnia here, and just put that all down. Now, originally when I was doing that, I actually wanted to put light, like a light texture on each one of these lamps, kind of give it a feel like, oh, look, it's glowing, it's very vibrant and bright. But by the time I was getting to the end of this, it was, I don't think I could have done another 300 textures and kept my sanity. I was getting pretty tired because I did crank this out in one sitting. But either way, the lanterns still look pretty good. I'm kind of happy with how it came out. I do like the black. It contrasts really nicely on the white. Because you can kind of see on the snowy background, or even with the trees, they stand out a little bit, but not too much. It's just enough. It's one of those complementary colors, and in this case contrasting it, but it complements it pretty well. It stands out just enough. And maybe it's due to the size and the shape of it that kind of looks natural. But anyway, I digress. So moving on, kind of adjusting more trees here, making it so you can kind of see the road, delete a couple extras, and throw in more lampposts in. Just making it look well-traveled. So honestly, if you really want to, you can actually do this. You can clone this map and do whatever the heck you want with it. I don't really care. It's entirely up to you. If you want to use it, hey, more power to you. I would love for you to use it. That's why I made it. But you could take more ornaments and kind of make more festive lighting, or maybe like throw wreaths on the trees. You'll probably have to make the wreaths custom unless you import a stamp. I have not imported anything. It's not something I've really learned how to do. It's not hard, but I feel like if I import something, it's not going to match the art style of the product here, or the program is what I meant to say. But anyway, so now I think let's see. I think I was adding nameplates, yeah. So I was kind of going around here, looking for something I could use as a back, just so I can put like numbers for things. So I ended up using the Elven table because I thought that looked kind of nice and not quite Dutch, but kind of in like maybe it's Nordic, I'm not quite sure, but look kind of the North Pole vibe. And he threw some text over there, spent way too long trying to actually select the text boxes. Ended up having to search there and select it through the thing, as you can see. That took a lot longer than it should have. But there's just a lot of assets down. And I decided not to lock up the other things beforehand, so being a little bit lazy here. And sometimes the lazy way is not necessarily the best way, but hey, eventually got it down, numbered everything, and just kind of got it all in place. So yeah, these numbers, you can do anything you want with them. They can names, places, they can be quests, whatever. Hey, popping out save, always save your work, by the way, because you never know what may happen. Also, I threw down some people as well. Kind of did them a bit red, so it looked more festive. But they're so small, it's hard to really know. Kind of notice it. But anyway, we're coming towards the end here. So I added a bunch of crates, put some blue and red, kind of break up the colors a little bit. Make it look like presents. I probably could have threw more on there, but you have to remember, you're looking at this from pretty far away, so you're not really going to notice it too much. So just enough would be pretty good. So after that, I remember there was a train here. I was like, oh, this would be brilliant. So I took some tracks and miniaturized them smaller than what they can actually go, and they just kind of went around in a mostly decent circle. It took me a fair bit to get this because I copied and pasted each track instead of placing it like a normal stamp, because I have it smaller than size 10, so I had to manually shrink it. So I just copied and pasted it and then threw two trains down here back to back because they don't have any pre-made train cars. I just kind of put it there. I thought it was a nice little touch because, classic train accuracy. But that's about it. That is the map in all its glory. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this time lapse. I might be making more of these. I do make maps all the time because, D&D never stops. And as a DM, you never stop either. So, anyway, if you enjoyed, hey, like, subscribe in the video. Stay tuned to the channel. I've been the X100, and I hope you have a fantastic day, and Merry Christmas to all. And to all, a Happy New Year. Take care.